Hello everyone, welcome to another great Flutter tutorial. Today in this video tutorial we are going to see how we can integrate Firebase Google authentication with Flutter. In our last video we integrated Firebase with Flutter, that is the core of Firebase was integrated with Flutter, and in this video we are going to integrate the authentication. So authentication is a type of extra module in Firebase and is not exactly the part of core, so we have to integrate and install it separately. Once we know the steps of installation and integration of one provider, that is in our case it will be Google provider, then we can easily install and integrate other providers as well, like Facebook, Apple sign-in, and there are many other sign-ins that Firebase provide. So we will start from the point where we ended in our last video. So if you have not checked the last video, please go check it out so that you are ready with the integration of Firebase and you can easily start with the authentication part. Here I will start directly with the authentication part, and start with the authentication part we have to install few packages. As I mentioned earlier that authentication is not part of core and we have to install it separately, so there is another package for Firebase authentication. So here is the getting started documentation of Firebase authentication, and this is the package that we need to install, that is Firebase_auth. So all we have to do is that we have to copy this command and we have to run it in the terminal where we have our project installed. So in my case the package is already installed, so I don't need to do it again, and this is the default app that is there when we create a Flutter project. So we will start from that default project itself. Once you have installed the Firebase auth package, then another package that you need to install is Flutter Google sign-in package. Flutter Google So this is the second package that we need to install, and yeah, this is the package, and here you can see there is an example also, so we will use some parts of this example. So let's get started. So I already have both the packages installed. I already have the Flutter core integrated, and so let's import the packages one by one. Okay, so this is the package that we need, the first thing, and the second package that we need is Firebase auth, and the third package that we need Google sign-in. So we have these packages imported now, and now we can go ahead and we can use the example of Google sign-in and instantiate the Google sign-in class, because we will need this globally. I think I copied complete code, but we need just this part of code. Okay, so Google sign-in class that is declared in this package, Google sign-in, is instantiated globally, and now we can use it in our project. Next step is to bind the Flutter framework with the Flutter engine using widgets Flutter binding. Ensure initialized. So let's do it. This binding is important if we want to make our app work dynamically. So what I have observed, that if this binding is not done, the app doesn't work dynamically and many of the data is not persisted and there are a couple of errors. So many of the features that we want to integrate needs this binding. So let's do this binding. And the next thing that we need to do is initialize the Firebase so that we can use it in our app next. And this will be a asynchronous call. So let's first declare this main method as async, and then we can use this await, sorry, not dot. So this syntax is used to initialize the Firebase so that it can be further used in our application. So we are done with this main function and we can move to the next part. The next step will be to write a handler for the login. So once the Google login button is tapped, then there must be a handler that can handle the call. So next thing is that we will write that handler. So we can write our handler just below the part where a counter property is declared and just above the increment counter method, because this handler is also a type of method. So the return type of this handler will be future, because we are going to use async await in it, and it will not return anything, so we also have to use a void, and we will name it handle sign in. And as mentioned, we have to declare it is as async, and now we need to call the Google sign in and use a variable of type Google sign in account to get the return value, and that need to be of type final. So here we have Google sign in account, nullable, and we will name it This is mentioned also in the documentation of Firebase. If we go to the federated identity and social, you will see that in the documentation it's mentioned that how we can call the sign in. This sign in basically triggers the authentication flow. So to trigger the authentication flow, we need to do this. We can also directly copy this from here. This is for Google Play games, and if we want to use the normal one, this is the one which is the normal one, and we can just copy it from here itself. The next step is to obtain the auth details. As you can see in the documentation, this is the code to obtain the auth details. So we can use this code from here itself, and the next step will be to create a new credential. Again, we have the code from the documentation itself, so most of the code in this step we are getting from the documentation. No doubt the sign in part is very well documented. All you should know that where to find it and where to get the correct code from. So here we are getting the credentials, we are creating the new credentials, and after the new credentials are created, the final step is to return the user credential. So here we will use a little bit different, because we are not returning the user credential, rather than we have declared our handler as void. So we will not return anything, or if we return, we will not return it from the method. And this complete await call provides us a getter of type user, so we will use this getter to return a user. So return value of user credential we will take in a variable. Let's name the variable as user credential, and this we will just use for the login purpose. So we will log the all return value, and we will see what all values we get. So we are done with the handle sign in part, and now we have to create another handler for sign out. So again, the sign out will be something similar to sign in. It will be of type future, and it will be of type void. We will use the same naming convention: handle sign out, and it will be asynchronous. Okay, I think async I put at wrong place. So the sign out is very simple and very similar to sign in. So now we are done with two handlers, sign in and sign out, and the next thing that we need to do is that we need to write a listener, so that which can listen when the user is getting signed in and signed out, and it can make some changes in state, and that changes will the changes in state will make the app rebuild. So we will write this listener just inside the build widget